Okay, so just take a quick overview of the Torah portion, even though we're talking about only an insight coming from a very specific snippet, but just for our knowledge of this, Torah is laying out some of the events, just a sampling of the events that went on with the Jews in the desert on their way from Egypt to Israel. And that was 40 years, and there's like 38 years we know virtually nothing about. But there are a few times that are brought up, which are important lessons for us, where Jews as a whole or as individual ones, they push back against the authority of God, Moses, Torah. So one of a prominent Jew named Korach, who was Moses' cousin, Harshover incites a mutiny, challenging Moses' leadership and the granting of the kahuna, the priesthood, to Aaron. Moses is the leader of the Jewish people. He's from the tribe of Levi, the Levites, and God tells him to create a subsection, a subgroup of the Levite tribe called the Kohens, the priests, and that will be Aaron and any of his children who are born henceforth from when it began. So Aaron is the first high priest, and when Moses appoints Aaron high priest, some of the other leadership is saying this is kind of convenient. You and your brother control. Where's the separation of powers? Got to spread the power around. So, but they don't. They do it in a very aggressive, disrespectful way. He is accompanied by Moses' inveterate foes. These are two guys who show up numerous times in the Torah, always rabble-rousers, Dasan and Aviram. And joining them are 250 distinguished members of the community, and they offer the sacrosanct Torah, the very special service in the temple, the incense, to prove their worthiness for the priesthood. The earth opens up and swallows the mutineers, and a fire consumes the Torah offerers. So it doesn't end well. A subsequent plague is stopped by Aaron's offering of this very same incense. Aaron's staff miraculously blossoms, brings forth almonds to prove that his designation as high priest is divinely ordained. Finally, God commands that a truma, an uplifting offering, be given to the Kohen and priests from each crop of grain, wine, and oil, as well as from all firstborn sheep and cattle and other specified gifts. Okay, now I want to get into where the course is taking us is in trying to understand the scripture, the Torah, and also to understand the most prominent historically over the past 900 years for sure, most prominent commentator on the Torah, on the scripture, is a French rabbi and vintner named Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, known as Rashi in the yeshiva hood. And he is very concise, very insightful. He extremely voluminous. He actually did three editions of his commentary, which is on the scripture, the entire scripture, not just the Torah we take out of the Ark, and on the Talmud. It's just even mindlessly copying it would take you a long time. He had three daughters, didn't have any sons. Three daughters helped him in the writing, but it's just the very writing is kind of mind-boggling, and the depth of and concise nature of it makes it a classic. So in this course, we want to pick one of Rashi's commentaries and try to and see it through the Rebbe's eyes, because the Rebbe would every Saturday afternoon when he spoke would revisit, look at one of them, even though they're written for a 5-year-old. There's tremendous depth, and we want to understand Rashi's thinking. Usually what we've done now is, because at the end of it, it's not just a study of Rashi, it's really, there's a lesson for life. So we start with the lesson for life, and then maybe we can back into the Rashi if we have time. The lesson for life here is it's a very common challenge I think we all have, or we all should have, which is how do you reconcile your moral values with your love for, let's start with a family member. Let's say, not even get into the fact that we have to have a love, or at least a deep respect for all of humanity. That's something we'll talk about in a minute. But think about sibling, think about cousins, think about people who are close to you. And now just take some simple, I mean, but horrible examples. Let's say, one of them is on fentanyl, which you find repugnant. So it's not like they're walking around with placards, we're pro fentanyl, but you heartily disagree with something they're doing. They cheat on a spouse. What are I supposed to do with that? If they're racist, again, not walking around those white hoods and robes, but there's some. If you speak to them, this is their position. They take offensive positions on homosexuals, whatever it may be, something like that. Do we say, listen, live and let live? Live and let live is much easier to live with. At the same time, what does it say about my moral code if it doesn't bother me that someone has a clearly racist, we use that as an example, approach to life? It should bother me. To be nonchalant about it from a Torah perspective is a weakening of my own moral code. So what am I supposed to do? Certainly the Torah would say I should speak to the person and try to help them see through moral fog. But let's say we're past that. Should I not invite them for Thanksgiving? Should I cut off relationship with them? My sibling, my cousin, a childhood friend. We've been together for many years. Because of my own morality, I strongly disagree with their position and where they stand. But does that totally define them, or should it totally define them? And even let's say I've felt that because of that, or as things have gone, maybe we don't get together Thanksgiving anymore. But they called me one night, 11 o'clock. They broke down in 78. They don't have AAA. This is my brother, my sibling. It's my friend. It's someone. Yes, we have a strong disagreement. Where do we go with that? I'm talking about perspectives, but it comes to actions too. What if a sibling is disrespectful to my parent? And I disagree with that. And I find that morally problematic. And I love my parents. Aside from talking with them about it, should I just say, well, it's not my business, it's their relationship? Shouldn't it bother me if I feel that disrespect to a parent is a wrong thing? At the same time, should I allow it to interfere with our relationship and say, I don't want to talk to you anymore because I don't like how you speak to mom? Obviously, I'm talking in broad generalities, but the idea is, the question is, if there are people and family members, and as Jews, we see all Jews as family members. So I'm broadening this a little bit. Basically, have a family member who has a moral position that is bothersome, is morally bothersome to me. I don't want to be nonchalant about it, because then what does it say about me? At the same time, how far should I take it? Or what's the appropriate the length to take it to take a stand on it? Am I supposed to cut them off? Let's say that in today's environment, it's probably as opposed to like 5 years ago, if we were talking about it, it's a little different, a little closer to home, perhaps, at least for me. because you see that there, October 8th, 2023, taught us that there's stuff going on there I didn't know about. The Aside from I knew that there are people in the Middle East who hated Jews and hated Israel, I didn't realize how it was waiting to spring out here at home, and how even some of my fellow Jews have joined in with that, and they're out there marching for from the river to the sea, which is really to me nothing less than a call for the elimination of Israel, which will be probably very bloody for the Jewish people, God forbid. So, you know, they're fellow Jews. Maybe it's even people I know. It happens to actually be people I know. Good kids, but they're are from went through our Hebrew school, but they're caught up in encampments and so on. That's so. What am I supposed to do with that? What is Chabad on campus supposed to do with that when the president of student the struggle for Palestine, whatever you call it, for justice in Palestine, which are apparently largely Jewish, the people leading it, from what I hear from our campus people, what happens when they show up to a Friday night meal at Chabad? So, answer that I believe the Torah answer and what we're going to pursue is that we have to distinguish. We don't want to be nonchalant about our feelings about a specific moral failing. In this case, we'll talk about a person not supporting those who want to destroy Israel, and we should find it repugnant even. But you want to distinguish between the feeling and the person, especially if this is a family member. So I can tell you, in all of those kafir, the student encampment people, the Jewish ones, if they came to Chabad on Friday night in these past year and a half, they're welcome there. They they're not welcome with placards and BDS posters, but as individual Jews. There's an understanding that this is not a venue for them to make political statements. It's a place for them to connect with their community, Jewish community, and connect with their heritage. And if that's where if that's where they've come, that's where they are welcome as family members, as Jews. But we have to. Their opinions are not welcome to be aired at this the Friday night Shabbat meal at the Chabad. So there's this distinction between the opinion and the opinion holder, and this idea which isn't instinctive, in that all of humanity in a way we're all one family of humanity. But we talk about the Jews in a narrower sense. So really, the way the Torah breaks down is the way I would frame it, is that the Jewish people are all my family, and the rest of the world are all my friends. And sometimes friends are closer to. There's a good comment here. Chaverim kol Yisrael. That all of us in Jews or in Israel are actually all chaverim, means are friends, and it goes even further, the idea that we actually are like family. I think that it's fair to say that what the Torah wants us to do is to treat the entire world, the non-Jewish world, like friends, and sometimes friends are closer than family, and that's fine, but treat with respect. Whether they're, whoever they are, every human being is created by God, and it's for us to treat with respect, as I do my friends, But there's a difference between the family is at a it goes up a notch. I take care of my family, and I see them as such. Now I see my family usually in a much more narrow way. It's my blood family. Torah wants me to see the entire Jewish community as my family, and that's the way that in looking at the Torah, that's the way we see it. So it's a balancing act, and I'll tell you that the someone who I know, who I'm still very friendly with. Um, they and I, the just talk about examples from my life. Um, Many years ago, 25 years ago, I know a couple who I knew them very well, and unfortunately they split up. And a husband who was a good friend of mine, he moved out of town, and his wife was still here, and she was lonely. Wasn't going through an easy time. And then she sent me an email that she found someone she really likes. And I said, "Great." I wrote back, "Great." She said, "I think when you meet him, I don't know if you think it's great." And I wrote back, "Tell me about this." And she said, "He's not Jewish." So she asked me if we could meet, and of course we could. And I came to my office right out here, and he's a great guy. And we spoke for a while, and it was clear that he is who he is. No interest in conversion in the sense, it's certainly in the sense I would define it, and I wasn't encouraging that. I was just listening and talking, and we met a few times, and then she said, we're we're going to go ahead with this. We decided to get married. And then she said, "Would you do the wedding?" And I said, "I can't do that. That's not my ideal." So she said, "Would you come at least and speak at the wedding?" And I said, I it's not, I love you guys. And I just met you. You're a good, you're like a great guy. Uh, it sounds, I've known you years a lot, but this is something. And what I said to them was to try to explain it. And as I say, we are many years later, we are still good friends. Um, I said, I feel like a pulmonologist who has a friend who's under a lot of stress, and it bothers me because I care about this friend, and she's bearing a great load, and I worry about it, and I want to try to relieve it. And then one day she comes to me and she says, I I'm okay now. I found a way to relieve my stress. I said, "What's that?" She said, "I started smoking." So I'm the pulmonologist, so I'm thinking, on the one hand, I want to see my friend happy, and my friend is happy. On the other hand, my brain is thinking about the lung scan, and I'm thinking that this is not as happy as it makes you. This is not where your soul needs to be. He's a great guy, and you're a great woman. And but the thing is that this, from a Torah perspective, the soul connection is not there. Doesn't mean he's not a great guy, but the question is of the soul bond. And they said, "So I can't fake it and be there when you know what I'm thinking and I know what I'm thinking. This is I don't. This is not, you're both great people. I wouldn't. This is not what I would do. Not because I don't like you both. It's about the soul chemistry, which I can't prove to you and I can't show it to you in a lab, but it's my belief system." And I said, I was sitting in front of my books. I said, "This is my spiritual lung scan. That's why I see it." So it was sad for me, and it was sad for them, but they understood it. And as I say, still for life cycle events and so on, where I'm there with them, and wherever I can, they're friends. But I just that just is the question is the way I see it, and I don't think that either of them are bad people, or God forbid want to cut the relationship, but it is what it is. That's how we see it. If that's what I believe, and it is what I believe. So, Torah-wise, it's we go. There are things when I talk about someone using fentanyl or someone cheating on a spouse, or even being part of an encampment that harasses a Jewish kid on the way to classes. I think we can all agree, just in basic humanity, say you understand why that's a problem, why a moral problem. Then when I get into religious stuff, I say, big deal. So they're eating bacon. So what? And I get it. That's the way it's taken. I don't think anybody eating bacon is they're thinking about something or rebelling against Torah and Judaism. I get it. They're just living their lives. But believing in the Torah, say for someone who does, say, okay, I want that person to feel welcome in my synagogue, welcome in my house, but secure in our friendship, but still maintain my feeling of that's not for them. And it's something that I see from a Torah perspective, it's not for them. Am I going to lecture to them? No, because it's not going to work. But the thing is, it is my belief. And for me to just start to just water that down because I'm not going to help anything anyway, and these are my friends, that's dangerous too. So it's a balance between holding on to our values and holding on to our relationships, because it would be tragic to cut our relationships because of a moral disagreement like this in family, and especially when we're talking about, and also when we're talking about the larger family, so to speak. So I want to bring up some of the. 1 second, I think there's another comment here. No, okay. So I'm going to share the screen. I'm actually going to start on 8A. One more? No. I'll tell you which one. I'm going to tell you which one. Okay, so we're going to start on 8A, 180. Okay. 8A is a quote from a great rabbi of the 13th century. And he makes a comment, which we need to interpret. But his comment is 8A, 180. It is a mitzvah to love a Jew who is your fellow concerning the Torah and its commandments. In other words, we all of us as Jews all have responsibility to the Torah. It says it's a mitzvah to hate a wicked Jew who willfully refuses to repent. That's very strong language. It's a mitzvah to hate if they know what they're doing and they don't want to change. The founder of Chabad, the great Torah scholar and spiritualist, Rabbi Zalman of Ladi, who he wrote a book called Tanya, which is the attitudinal textbook launching point for Chabad thought from the 1700s. He writes, he really bouncing off of that, he massages it. So you have to understand it. It is equally a mitzvah to love them. Both are true. We don't hate the person. We hate the wickedness in them and love the hidden goodness in them. So if I have a friend who's been a friend for a long time, and now I know he's cheating on his wife, that's horrible. It should bother me. It should repel me. And what Rabbi Zalman is saying is, while the wickedness, that betrayal and treachery within him, it should bother me, I am never off the hook with the Torah responsibility to care about him, to love him. It's a balancing act. It's someone I love. It's someone I'm not unplugging from. It's someone I will not stop loving because they're my sibling, either physically, biologically, or within the Jewish people. But I also have a responsibility to be appalled by the negative behavior. So just putting it to the side and saying, let's have a beer and you do you, I'll do me. And so you're cheating your wife, big deal. That's not good. It should really bother me. But I should still care about him, be a friend, not condone the behavior. And a real friend can understand that there's going to be differences in behavior. Condoning the behavior is supporting that's something we can't do, but it should never come to a place of creating a distance where I no longer care. I no longer care about the person as a human being, and love in the language is the hidden goodness in them because everybody has that, even if it's not being shown right now. So if you visit people in prison or people who have loved ones in prison, it's always they were a good person. I don't know what happened. So it's good people sometimes do really nasty things. So we should not like the nasty thing. We should dislike the nastiness, but recognize that they're still created by God and they still deserve basic decency, and especially if they're their relatives or old friends, to be able to still recognize the hidden goodness within them. Along those lines, text 8c. This is from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he says like this: the students of Rabbi Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mezrich, who was the teacher of the rabbi we quoted in 8b. He's from the founders of the Hasidic movement in general, way back in the 1700s. He set up rotations to serve him. They set up the students would take care of him. The saintly Reb Zusha of Anapoli related a story he heard from his brother, the saintly Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhensk, to Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Ladi, to the founder of Chabad. What was the story? Once when it was Rabbi Elimelech's turn to serve the Maggid means a preacher, the preacher of Mizrich. He was in a nearby room when he heard the Maggid calling him. He entered, and the Maggid said, "Do you hear Melech?" Melech is a diminutive, like a nickname for Elimelech. Do you hear Melech? What is being said in the heavenly academy? What's being said in the heavens? That the mitzvah to love our fellow Jew applies to an evil Jew as it does to a completely righteous Jew. Again, be careful even in the translation here. The idea is evil Jew means now they've been labeled. To be very careful about that. They're a Jew who does evil, and the mitzvah to love our fellow Jew applies to that person too. Another episode comes up, and I'm sure Steve Applebaum will tell me how many times I've mentioned this. But shortly after we moved here to Basking Ridge, my brother-in-law in South Jersey, who's about in Cherry Hill, called me up in a panic.
I know. Starts with an M.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
Let's say.
And he called me in a panic because a rabbi down there, who's the rabbi of a big Reform congregation, had been arrested, and he ultimately sat in prison for hiring a hitman to kill his wife. It was a terrible story, and he became a pariah in Cherry Hill, and his temple he couldn't go to. So none of the other temples let him in. And he sent an email to my brother-in-law saying he wanted to come to Shabbat services. And my brother-in-law was going crazy. He said that he mentioned it to a few people. The women there were like, they're up in arms. Men weren't too happy either. Why do we need this guy here? But if someone's welcome nowhere, where do they go? Chabad. So I said to my brother-in-law, you have no right to not allow a Jew to come to shul, unless he's a danger to the people in there. This guy's accused of hiring a FedEx man to kill his wife. If he comes with a FedEx guy, don't let him in. But how can you not? Don't give him an aliyah. don't, if this is something to give a platform of special honor, that's something else. But to allow a Jew, to disallow, to bar a Jew from coming to shul, we don't have that. And he actually, that's where he used to go until he ultimately went to prison. But even there, people, well, I know, because I go down there also relatively often, people who had been close to him when they were in his congregation, they went to testify as character witnesses in his trial. Now, it's not that they think he didn't do it. It's they saw there was good in him. They say, and I spoke to one of them, said, the guy saved my marriage. What he did is horrible, but doesn't mean he didn't save my marriage. And I wanted the court to know that. And whether someone would go to choose to go to court to mitigate the punishment of someone who did such a dastardly thing is separate, but it shows the conflict. Say he did something terrible. Is that his entire life? Is that his entire character, or is there good there too? And say, but if they do such an evil thing, there's the mitzvah to love and take care of this person. To despise what he did, what he was convicted of doing is beyond disgusting and horrible and abominable. But if he came here to shul, he should be welcome, and he can have gefilte fish like everybody else.
But the whole community would know.
I would hope the whole community doesn't know. Yeah, so
Community, you know better than me. Here you go to the fire. Why?
So it's there are certain things you can't control, but ourselves and our feelings we can. And if someone has done something that we consider even abominable, it doesn't mean we should consider it abominable. If it's a moral travesty, we should have that feeling, but that has to coexist with ideas. But this is still my family,
Sure.
And just like I would do it for my brother and my sister, it says someone else in the Jewish community, and in a way for the global community. If there's someone I know and we've been friends and they've done something dastardly, that's terrible. Does that mean I shouldn't try to visit them in prison and recognize there's still a human being in there?
Yeah, but I think like we feel the pressure. All everybody
Yeah.
already know what he's doing. He must be feeling a big old.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna go up on the man, Lagos.
No. This yeah. Okay. Text 9. This is from the Rebbe. The Rebbe in text 9, he quotes someone who calls the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, it means in Yiddish, means the old rabbi, and that is the way we refer to the founder of Chabad, the one who was quoted in text 8b, Rabbi Shneur Zalman. And the Rebbe was a great grandson of his, and he writes here. The Alter Rebbe teaches that we must love every Jew from the greatest to the worst. We must love them as we love our siblings with an intrinsic love. When the Torah tells us, love your fellow as you love yourself, that means love them like we love ourselves. What does that mean? Can I really love someone to the extent I love myself? No. I mean, that's quite a bar. And even if there's someone, my child or someone very close to me, where he could say it's the same thing, but this is like a broad thing. All Jews, I'm not going to love them as much as I love myself. I don't even know them. I maybe just met them. But what is the Torah teaching us? That just like we love ourselves intrinsically, not conditionally, we don't love ourselves because of our strengths, and we love ourselves despite our faults. We should have a self-love and a self-preservation and a loyalty to ourselves. And we know we have our faults. I hope everyone is self-aware enough to see their weaknesses. But hopefully we see them in context and say, yes, that's my weakness. Yes, that's not good. But on the whole, generally, hopefully we see ourselves as generally good people. And we try to be generally good people, despite the fact we have flaws. Even if our flaws are so glaring that we can't deny them, We cover them up and love ourselves because the part we love is much deeper than the faulty part. It's we have different levels to self, and there's the intrinsic character, and then there's my shtick. Yes, I did that. So that's the way, in my experience, that's the way people see themselves. And it's here we're saying that's the way we should, if that's the way we see ourselves, that's the way we should see others. Just like we want people to look, if someone looks at me and says, and sees a flaw in me, and I speak too long on Shabbos, or whatever it is, and I would hope that they don't peg me, that that's me. I'm a much more complex, nuanced person than that specific issue. And if that's a weakness, that's something I should deal with. If I don't deal with it, that's something that's on me. But don't define me by my weaknesses. If I don't like people defining me by my weaknesses, I shouldn't do it to others. And that's one way of reading. Love your fellow as you love yourself. Give them the benefit of that latitude, not to define them by even egregious flaws. That is precisely how we must love one another. So, when a student walks into a Chabad on a Friday night, and they've spent the week putting up horrible posters about Israel. We should find that practice repugnant, but that's not it's a kid, it's a person, and how they got to that place, either we'll know or we don't know, but we can't define them. There's a human being inside there, and that human being is part of my family, and that family member should be welcome at my table. Text 10. The injunction to love your fellow as you love yourself is meant quite literally. This is also from the Rebbe. As our love for ourselves is not rational but unconditional, so must we love our fellow Jews unconditionally. The self-love is, no matter what we're doing, that hopefully should survive within us. Well, the care and love for our fellows, even if we don't know them, that should be also unconditional. Now, how is this possible, considering that another and I are two separate people? The answer is that I'm not loving another. I'm loving myself. We're all part of an integral whole. There's a single core soul that differentiates into many parts. If I dig, I'll find the same cores of both. So all of us, and on the Zoom, we're different people, different social security numbers, different experiences, different fears, different loves, but we're all part of one community. And that's beautiful, and we can see that. And the Torah is saying that community, it actually at a spiritual level is like one soul, or like one body. And the left hand doesn't distance itself from the right hand. Same blood goes through both, and even if the right hand is doing something the left hand doesn't like, and shouldn't like, doesn't mean we don't disconnect from the body. Okay, so that was that. I'm sorry. I read it, but it's here. Further. Okay. Those who wanted to read that. And now, this is also from the Rebbe. Right. This is now on text 12, 184, sorry. We should add and emphasize the connection between the love of a fellow Jew and the coming redemption. Love among Jews is a foretaste and even a beginning of the true complete redemption. This is because the world will be marked with oneness with God, beyond differentiation, the era of Mashiach should be expressed primarily through unity among all Jews. So this is something we look forward to a better world. We look forward to a world which shows its goodness, call that the world of Mashiach, which comes to the fore. And part of that is our internal, our connection. Now, again, it's important to recognize the Torah perspective is that there's a connectedness between all of humanity. We're all created by God for a purpose, and every human being has the ability for moral choice. And that means that we all have something to contribute to the world, goodness to bring to the world. And we should all feel on the same team. But within that large team of humanity, there's the Jewish people as a family. And then again, in local communities, local families as it shrinks. But the Torah in general is talking about the idea of connectedness, and especially between Jews, the idea of being able to see Jews who aren't our biological family, but as family. And I'm going to stop to share for a minute, say that one of the things that next a week from today is the Rebbe's Yahrzeit. He passed away in 1994. So we're now 30. We're now 31 years. And one of the things that we were able to see in the Rebbe was his care and concern for all of humanity, and especially for his fellow Jews. And so he was a living example of it. And this is something that it is part and parcel of, it's not just, it's a Chabad philosophy, it's a Torah philosophy. But Torah is very complex and nuanced. And, different communities can emphasize different flavors and the different elements. And they're right. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. If it's based in Torah, it's based in Torah. But the Chabad understanding of Torah, the Chabad presentation of Torah, and you see how the original Chabad founder in the 1700s wrote it, about that there is this, we have an indestructible commitment and responsibility to care about each other. And that while there is a moral imperative sometimes to find a repugnance in behaviors of someone who we are bound and instructed to love, one does not cancel out the other. They have to coexist. Just as if my brother, God forbid, was telling me he was cheating on his spouse, it would be, I would find it repugnant. I would talk to him. He would hurt me, and I would speak to him. And if he didn't back off it, I would find it repellent. But he's my brother, and I should never allow it to create the distance between us. There's the balancing act. I love something in him, and I really don't like something else in him. And I be able to have the nuanced thinking, to be able to have it, is just like we need it in a family. We need it in our broader family. And in this era we're living through since October 7th, it's probably a more, it's a more necessary lesson for us as Jews than it would have been 5 years ago, although then it would have been important too. That there are Jews today that who, from where I sit, I just, my opinion, of Jews today who are openly showing a disdain or worse for Israel, for the Jewish presence in Israel. To me, when I grew up, I didn't, maybe there were individuals, I never saw Jews as doing that. One thing we all agreed about was Israel. And it hurts. And I don't like it. But certainly if someone with that attitude walks in here, the mandate is, and my responsibility is to embrace them and say, how can I help you? And that goes for all of us. We can't allow this to divide us as a people. If we allow it to divide us as a people, God forbid, we're handing a victory to the Jew haters. and it gets a little difficult. And one of them might say it's difficult for them to like me. One of my Hebrew school kids who I like, I really feel, a connection with, from years ago. He wrote to me because I send out these Torah thoughts for Shabbos, and I never really dealt with politics. But after October 7th, it wasn't politics; it was Jewish survival, and I was being very, very frontal about Jewish survival and what was going on. And maybe a month, 2 months after October 7th, he wrote me an email. He says, I read these every week. I'm very disappointed that now you shifted, you pivoted to politics. I would hope that the pulpit would remain above politics. And I wrote back to him, said, I'm sorry. It hurts me that you're offended by it. I don't see it as politics. I see it as an existential struggle for the Jewish people, and I don't have a right to be silent. I'd love to meet with you, not to convince you, but just to be able so we can hug each other and know that we're still together and it's okay. We could do this. He actually didn't respond to that, but I'll hunt him down. It's not over. But the point is, I get it. So someone might find that attitude repellent in me. Okay, everybody has, can choose their perspective, but I would hope that that person would still remember that I'm still the person they knew, or I'm still a member of their community who doesn't agree with them. And maybe if I have a perspective that they find repellent, but that doesn't mean we split. And I'm talking about from the position that those who do agree with me about about the fight for Israel and for the Jewish people, and because they're all melded together now. The idea of distinguishing between being pro-Israel and or anti-Israel and being anti-Jewish, I think that's a distinction that has long sailed. It's either anti-Israel is going to be today, to me, anti-Jewish, and even for Jews. And I understand that could be offensive to someone, but for us, for anybody who does agree with me, even though I do believe that, it should never be a division between me and my people. They come in with their belief that there should be no Israel, well, you're still welcome in my house. It hurts. You're still welcome in my house. And you're still welcome in my shul. And that's really the lesson word is. I think we've had enough. If there's any questions, we could do it. I'm not going to go back to the Russia. Yeah,
that situation with my daughter.
Yeah, I don't know how they can hear, if they can hear you online. So just say it a little louder. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was telling Carly that I was going on this trip
Your daughter, which trip?
to Israel with the shul.
Oh, when you went to Israel.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. After October 7th.
Yeah. And I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to bond with my grandson.
Right.
And he's never been to Israel, so I thought that would be a good, very historic time to do it. And she said, Dad, why would he want to do that? And she went into this whole tirade about, genocide. I felt like I walked into a toxic environment that I just was almost repelled. What did I walk into here? The strength.
I don't know if everyone can hear, but
when
you're going to
her resistance.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even bring it up with him. I couldn't even think to turn to him and say, well, what do you feel about this?
So I don't know if you are able to hear, but they were sharing that to Steve that when we took a trip, there was a solidarity trip. I didn't go actually, but we went to Israel after October 7th. He wanted to bring your grandson with you, and your daughter was because I know her and she's a sweetheart, but I understand she was appalled the idea of taking him to Israel, supporting the genocide. God forbid. So and that's it's difficult, but well, thank God, your relationship transcends this. That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be.
Hard.
It's I can't imagine how hard it is, but it's this is that's about Israel, but it can go on in different ways. And I had someone in my office Friday, a very concerned daughter is deeply involved in a non-Jewish boy, and it's a difficult balancing act because years ago, still when I was a kid, people would sit shiva.
Mhm.
I don't think that worked well because it broke up families. It didn't. It wasn't a deterrent. So so I was saying to them, I'm not saying you should say it's okay. It's all right to have an opinion. It's all right to have a moral stand, even a strong moral stand. But it's not all right to break up your family.
Got to the point where where Carly and Mike and
Yeah,
Oren
yeah.
stood at the door and said, she's not welcome in our house anymore. Because she
Yeah.
just couldn't filter
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it.
So that's it's a balance because you don't. Yeah, I mean, I think about it in terms again. People think differently, but if my brother is God forbid, and I don't want to say this again about him, I'm because believe me, he's totally not possible for him to do. Not that this isn't his thing, but if he's cheating on his wife, for me to do anything that would make him think I'm okay with it, that's a disservice to him, and it's wrong for me. So it's okay to have an opinion, respectfully, to have an opinion and a moral opinion, but not to forget we're brothers, or our parent and child, or whatever it may be. We can't do. But it's okay. It's not actually. You don't want to be obnoxious, but it's okay to have an opinion, I can see a moral failing in just letting it slide and saying, well, it's not me, it's them, and well, the way you grew up, whatever. Just and when you see doing something, someone doing something, someone's doing something that's morally reprehensible, to just let it slide. Now, to in a certain sense, saying how can you compare marrying a nice non-Jewish guy with having with cheating on a spouse? One is clearly morally reprehensible. One is just falling in love. I get that part too. But if we're looking from a spiritual perspective, even though one is clearly being betraying and treacherous, and how can anyone say it's okay to cheat on the spouse? And you can understand why someone would say it's okay. I just love them. What's a big deal? But from the perspective of our people, and the perspective of Torah is saying we for the continuity of our people and for keeping our heritage moving, going, it's okay to say, I don't agree with that. Torah doesn't allow it, and I don't agree with it. It's not okay to be obnoxious. It's not okay. I don't think it's okay to break the relationship, God forbid. But it's not just, well, it's whatever. The only thing. So he loves his secretary. What am I supposed to do? No, not okay. And as I was telling this family, this couple Friday, I said, because they were kind of heated up. I said, show your opinion, but don't God forbid, break your bond with your daughter. Well, be careful. Anyway, so we'll leave it over here. Now, the key points of Moshe is about the Rashi. So, wish you all a great week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Be well.